Wilkinson here. Thanks for joining us again today. It would really help me a lot if you did a couple things if you're enjoying these episodes. First of all, hit that subscribe button below. It really helps me out. Secondly, if you are enjoying the podcast, hit that like button. That's a little thumbs up down there. Leave a comment. Let me know which episodes you like, and I hope you enjoy today's episode. Greetings, Wilkinson here. I'm back today with Jason Reale. I met Jason at a play last week that I attended called The Lincoln Debate. So he's with me this morning. Say hi, Jason.
Hey, everybody.
Glad to have you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right, where are we going to start? Let's hear some Jason news here. Tell me a little of your background, just general stuff.
General background. From Illinois originally, so I had that in common with Lincoln. Went to school in Chicago, art school, basically to be a graphic designer, and moved to San Francisco, hated it, moved to New York, loved it. Pandemic kind of ruined it, and moved to Palm Springs recently just as wanted something completely opposite than New York.
Well, you got it.
Yeah, right?
Why'd you hate San Francisco?
I think part of it, I was 25 and I was living in San Francisco. I didn't know anybody, but I was working in Sausalito. So taking the ferry every day was fun at the beginning. And then it was like, okay, well, I'm missing happy hour. I'm missing the opportunity to make friends here. So after like 11 months, I was like, not really my cup of tea. Plus, it was still kind of cold.
What did you like about New York?
New York, there was an interesting energy. It's fast paced. It's okay. I hated it after the first year, but I stuck it out for a year or two. And by the end of year two, I loved it. I was like,
and how long were you there overall?
8 years?
Okay.
8 or 9. But
okay.
The pandemic was 1 year that I was there, which I count as like 10. So
wow. Yeah, we were chatting before, and it must have been really hard in New York during that.
It wasn't,
because that was like almost ground zero for COVID too.
Yeah. It was the first place to shut down. It was the first like epidemic center basically in the States, and it just was a lot. Like again, like seeing the freezer cars of bodies, knowing what's inside, seeing just the lack of people on the streets. When you've lived in New York for even like if you've been in New York for a day, seeing the lack of people on the streets is a weird feeling.
Of course.
It starts to feel like one of those like end of world movies almost.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
Which are great, but I didn't expect to live through one.
Be in it, yeah.
Yeah.
So how about your family life? What was involved in that?
My family life was good. So I grew up the youngest of 2. My father passed away when I was 3, which isn't great, but it is what it is. Kind of was unexpected. He was 28 or 29. I kind of forget. My mother never remarried. So it was really just kind of a close-knit three group of people. So that was good. I have close family with my grandmothers and fathers on both sides. I had all of my grandparents until a couple of years ago, actually. I lost my first one. And then, I had my great-grandparents until I was in high school. I had 2 of them.
Wow.
Which was very odd for most people. So there's a long bloodline in my family, usually.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah, right? Who knows, right? But yeah, everybody was, like, it was a happy childhood, all of that stuff. And I grew up in a bowling alley. My family owned a bowling alley, so kind of grew up there. And then...
So your mother ran that?
So she did after I was in like high school, I think is when she transferred to that. Before that, she worked for Bell Helmet.
Was it her bowling alley before that? Or
Yeah.
So she just had people running it and stuff like that?
All of that stuff. Well, my grandparents owned it at that time, so they were running it.
Are you a bowler?
I can. My family is amazing at bowling on my mom's side. Like I have an uncle that has like so many 300 games. All of his 2 kids have a lot of 300 games, like perfect games, and they've done really well and love bowling. My brother's very good. My mom was good.
What's your highest score?
My highest score, I think, is 220. But I stopped bowling, I want to say, when I was like 7th grade.
Okay.
And kind of hated it. It wasn't really fun for me. Though it was nice to own the bowling alley, because in high school, we would go like basically after hours and nobody would be there and we could bowl or do whatever we wanted, which was always fun.
They have a snack bar?
Yes. Had a snack bar, they had a bar,
yeah,
all of that fun stuff. I worked in the bar for a little bit. I think that was my second job there. My first job was vacuuming.
Oh, brother.
Yeah. Bartending was fun because, I mean, and technically work at the bar if you owned it. So even when I was like underage, I could work there while I was 13.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which was good. I worked on ladies' night, so I always got the good tips.
And you're probably cute, right?
Yeah. It had moments.
So you're gay.
Yes, I am.
When did you figure that out?
I mean, when does anybody figure it out? I figured it out probably around like 13 or 12 or 13. But I tried not to be for so long. And then I tried not to be for a very long time. Which
Why?
is, I'm Catholic. I grew up Catholic. I grew up in a family that was kind of anti-gay. I have a gay aunt, my godmother, who I think when she was in her 20s was kind of expunged from the family. Never really knew how or what happened. I just know there was an argument. I was too young to really know what was happening. And then we just didn't see her for a long time. And she had a roommate and all of those things who she lived with that my family liked to talk shit about quite a bit. But that was never fun to hear. You knew you were not going to follow the same path as everybody else, I think is what it was. You knew there was something different about you. So whether I could put that into words or whatnot, I tried not to. I ended up coming out when I was 25 to my family. I came out to my friends slowly over the course, but I went to school in Chicago, which was 2 hours north of where I grew up, which kind of helped for the gradual transition of coming out because it was art school. Everybody's a little gay in art school, or at least experimenting to become, and gave me, I guess, a separation from my family enough to start to accept myself and accept people and have people accept me, basically put myself out there to be accepted as my authentic self as much as I could be authentic. So that was the gradual transition. And then, so that was from 20 is when I started coming out to my friends, and then coming out to my friends in high school. After that, the friends that I still maintain contact with, gradually as well. And then family was kind of ripping off like a Band-Aid over Facebook in a post.
What?
Yeah. It was easiest, and I might have been a little drunk when I did it too.
Wow.
Yeah, well, liquid courage, I think is what they call it.
Any ramifications from that?
I don't know. Nothing that I got a lot of messages of love and acceptance and all that stuff. I think the biggest change that ever happened was my family just stopped asking me when I was bringing somebody home. So who knows?
Meaning a lady.
Yeah, they just stopped asking in general if I was ever going to get married or have kids, which I guess is a fun thing.
So, have you had a partner?
Boyfriends,
partners?
I've had boyfriends. I dated someone for about a year when I was in my 20s, before I came out to my family. My family knew them as my roommate, which was fine. I think everybody has that story, right? Or at least the older generations like me. Yeah, I mean, I think that was the longest relationship I've had. The other ones have been 6 months to 2 weeks.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you were dating in New York?
I was dating a little bit. I don't know. In my 20s and early 30s, I really was all about my career and trying to build that up as much as possible. I'm a graphic designer, and as my core career, I guess the money-making career. And I wanted to get as high up as possible, as quickly as possible. So love life kind of went to the burner for a little bit there. It was on the sidelines, I guess you can call it.
How about Palm Springs? Do you date here?
Well, Palm Springs, I moved. It was 2021. It was still kind of pandemic-y. And I was ripping out the house. So I bought a condo here, and I was completely gutting it and doing it a lot of it myself. So that took a lot of my time and energy. So I just kind of avoided people. Yeah. So dating, it's a slow burn, I guess, is what it's coming down to.
Huh.
Yeah.
No fun dating stories?
Not really. No fun dating stories. I mean, I've had the interesting dates of like someone showing up drunk on the first day. That was fun. That was in New York. I also had somebody that in New York showed up and said I didn't look enough like my pictures and then left. When I've always thought that I put pictures out on my line that are less attractive than I am, I like to fool them into thinking that I'm not as good, but it is what it is. That was a little bit of a downer. Yeah, dating. Here I've gone on dates with a mixed bag. I mean, the thing is, like, you get a lot of people from LA, a lot of people from San Diego here for the weekend or for a week. at the most, really. They can be nice, but it's never been anything amazing. And it's never felt, I don't know, there's a different dating quality here than there was in New York. In New York, I liked some of the ambition that my fellow dates would have. Like they were all trying to make something of themselves or wanted something, like that kind of dream and drive, I think is something that I find very sexy. And I haven't found as much drive in Palm Springs.
Well, there's so many retired guys here.
Yes.
That's why.
Yes.
So sitting at home every night and petting the dog and watching TV is not your idea of excitement?
I love that. That sounds amazing. It's not, and it doesn't need to be exciting. It just, I don't know, somebody that wants something and that has ambition. I love ambition. Yeah, which can be a pro or a con, I guess. I mean, in LA, it can be about like, who do you know and who can you set me up with?
Or they're so ambitious you never see them.
Yeah. Can be fine too, as long as they're paying.
What'd you do graphically in New York?
So I worked for branding and packaging firms mainly. So I started working in the advertising world and then kind of geared towards more of the branding and packaging. It was a way to, I don't know, I went to school for graphic design, but mainly with the focus on design, which is a very slim market, and never did anything with it. I basically went to packaging and branding right afterwards. But I worked for brands like PepsiCo, Anheuser-Busch. I did a lot of Bud Light packaging. Way too much Bud Light packaging. I might have redesigned Bud Light probably 5 or 6 times in the matter of like 3 years.
Wow. And then you probably have the whole corporate thing you have to deal with, right?
There is a lot of cooks in the kitchen, basically, when it comes to big corporations like that. And a lot of everybody
and they don't know how to cook, probably, a lot of them, right?
Well, but they have an opinion on how it should taste.
Right.
Which is fun and kind of disheartening as a designer, which is why I kind of started, which is why I left my full-time job. I left kind of the ambition aside a bit more. And that's when I went to acting. I found a studio there that I loved. It felt like a family, all of that stuff. It was a small studio called HP Studio, where Hagen was the main inspiration and kind of teaching of. And I found a teacher that I really, really loved. She was crazy, but amazing at the same time. So, and she actually studied with Uda. So I thought that was kind of a nice little connection as well.
So we're talking stage, not film, right?
Stage, yeah.
Okay.
No, so stage acting.
What was the draw to that?
I'd always wanted to. In high school, I never had the nerve to do plays because I didn't want to be considered gay. I think that's a big thing, which is why I geared towards sports and other extracurricular activities that were not gay.
Wait, are actors gay?
In theater in high school, that's the rumor, at least we'll call it. Actors, who knows, right? But yeah, I always wanted to. And then in college, I chose a safe career-ish. I mean, it's a creative field, so it's not always safe. Nothing's really safe anyway. But I didn't want to be a struggling actor. So I didn't want to have to wait tables and do all of that stuff while putting my dream on hold or while trying to do all of that stuff.
So the starving artist wasn't kind of your thing?
No. I mean, yeah, not really. It didn't sound appealing to me. It didn't sound like a way to... I didn't have the courage to do that, I think is what it came down to. It did sound appealing. It just didn't. It scared the shit out of me.
So what happened with the acting and your job in New York?
Yeah, so I quit my job, and then I basically just went freelance for the same companies. I still work for most of them now.
Are you like independent now?
Yep. So independent.
So you're your own thing.
Yep. Cool. So struggling, whatever you want to call it, struggling artist. Back at it a little bit, but not really struggling, at least. I've been lucky enough to be able to have like a full list of clientele that kind of maintain my dream and let me have a little bit more flexibility in my hours and all of those things, so I can do fun things like a podcast in the afternoon on a Friday. But it was a means to an end, I guess. And the acting just is something that I always dreamed of doing, but when I hit like 32, I was like, it's kind of now or never. It's not true, but it was the driving force that... Why wait? I think I asked myself the question of like, if I were to have like 6 months to live, what would I do? Or what would I not do? And I wouldn't design, and I would spend all my money trying to do something that I dreamed of, whether it's like being in a film or being whatever. So
Hmm. And you were in plays in New York?
I was in a couple of like off Broadway plays.
Were they still in the city?
They were in the city. They were in
Okay.
the city. So
All right.
that's a
Okay.
positive note. They were cabaret style. Might not have had all the rights to the plays, but with the cabaret license, you can get away with some of that, with songs at least. So yeah, I got to have some of my fantasy, and then immediately after that, pandemic happened. So that dream kind of went to the wayside a little bit and kind of went online, if anything.
Right. Did the pandemic basically propel you to a new location? Or what brought you out here?
It was definitely the pandemic because I lived in New York all 2020, and I had a friend that bought a house here towards the end of 2020, basically from a flipper that didn't finish the house, and she needed somebody to come out and help her finish it so they could rent it. So I came out and helped her for a couple of weeks. And then while I was here, I met with her real estate agent and went from there. Basically, it's like I knew I wanted to get out of New York. The goal was to go to LA, but it was still kind of closed. So why not get kind of close, see if I like the West Coast, have a little bit more space and a little bit more, I don't know, freedom to drive and do all of those things. And
Right.
also work with my hands. So I bought a fixer-upper that needed a lot of work. And when you've lived in a tiny apartment in New York, living over Zoom, basically, I was like, I need to work with my hands. I need to do something away from the computer screen.
Right. Where'd you learn the skills to do the remodeling stuff?
So my grandfather on my mom's side, architect, carpenter, concrete pourer, has done everything. He built the house I grew up in. He built my mom's house she grew up in, everything. It was like he knew how to do all of that stuff. So that was kind of where I learned a lot of that from. I bought my childhood home, I think 2017, from my mom so she could move into a condo. And the goal, like I kind of got renovated that as well. And it was nice because my grandfather was able to kind of point out like where his faults were or what might need to be happened. So it was good to have him hands on to kind of help me learn some of that hands on stuff too.
And that's in Illinois?
Yeah.
Okay.
Outside of Champaign.
Did
Illinois.
you do you still have that or did you get rid of it?
Nope. So my cousins bought it, which was nice.
Keep it in the family.
Yeah, exactly. And they bought it before I finished it, which was good because it was a big house and it was a lot, a lot to do. So they bought it and then they finished it. And they love it, which is nice. And it's nice to keep it in the family just because it did have sentimental value and all of that stuff. And it's a beautiful location.
So what have you been doing acting wise out here?
Acting wise. So a lot of auditions, if you want to call that acting wise. So a lot of Zoom auditions, a lot of self tapes. And then last year I did my first play here. So at the Desert Rose Theater, the late great Desert Rose Theater, I did a production of Mae West's The Drag and Sex. So, which was interesting because they're like 1920s plays that were trying to bring into the modern age, but still kind of play homage. They were the ones that were banned when they were on Broadway or had Mae West put in jail for its contents in the 1920s because it showed gay relationships, it showed drag queens, and it showed sex, basically. Well, sex workers at least.
Right.
So that was interesting to kind of, and obviously like the plays don't have the same weight that they had then, but they still kind of do because society hasn't changed a whole lot.
Right. What was your role in that?
So in The Drag, I played Raleigh Kingsbury, which was the married gay man, the main little guy that kills himself at the end, unfortunately, because of trapped between the love of a woman and the love of a man. And so he was an interesting character to play. And then we did the whole thing in black and white. So we did it film noir, which meant we had black and white makeup on.
Oh, wow.
All of our skin was covered to be grayscale. That was a lot of makeup work.
I guess.
Yeah.
I wish I would have seen that.
It was a lot of fun, a lot of set changing, and a lot of makeup work, which wasn't the funnest part. But it was an interesting experience, and I really enjoyed it. And I got to meet some really amazing people that I'm still working with. So that's always a nice feeling. And then after that, I did with the same company, I did Crimes of the Heart. Played a straight character. It's the male roles aren't really anything in that movie, in that film, or in that play. It was just kind of the relief role, if anything. And now recently, just finished the Lincoln debate. So the first run of the Lincoln debate, which has been a really interesting experience.
How so?
There's a lot of lines in that play. There's a lot of dialogue that is 1800s speaking dialogue, which is still, while we're in the Shakespearean kind of language, it does feel like a modern interpretation of Shakespeare in some ways. When I first read it, I was so scared of that I didn't want to do it. But I'm very happy I did at this point, because it has pushed me out of my comfort zone in many ways. Many ways.
Well, I saw it on last Friday. Was it last Friday? A week ago? I guess it was.
Yeah.
I was like amazed at your lines. I told my friend that was with me, my God, how did he memorize all that? It was like insane.
Yeah, it's a lot. I would have loved them to cut like at least a letter, maybe. Because basically, so for everybody else that hasn't seen it yet, it's going to come back. But we go through Lincoln's letters basically as almost like love letters to his friend, his best friend,
Male best
friend.
Right.
So the debate is whether or not Lincoln was gay or not. We all leave that up to the audience to choose their own facts and choose their own things. We're just presenting facts as they were. So a lot of it is I'm reciting his actual letters from memory, which was a lot.
How long did you have to learn those?
I needed to be off book about a month. Yeah.
What is off book?
Fully learning. So
okay.
Know them without having to have the book near me.
Okay.
Without having to have the script. No, it was terrifying, honestly.
How many hours a day did it take you to do that?
I would spend probably about like 2 to 3 hours at the beginning, and then as I started to feel more comfortable with it, it would be like an hour a day at least, where I would just recite the letters to myself. Because the thing is too, I'm not just reciting letters in the play. They're being interrupted by other people. So there's dialogue that's happening around the letters. But if that dialogue doesn't happen, the letters have to continue. So I had to learn them without the breaks as well as with the breaks, just in case.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if somebody forgot to say something, you just kept going?
Yep. Basically, if there's too long of a pause, it's got to steamroll through.
Was it fun playing Lincoln?
It was a lot of fun. Because again, it's a modern interpretation. I was playing Abraham, the actor that was cast to play Abraham Lincoln. So it was like a play within a play in some ways. So you didn't have to be fully like rigid and what we would think of as Lincoln. You could be a little bit more free, a little bit more modern in some ways, because we wanted people to understand what was happening, as well as, I don't know, feel compelled to continue watching and listening.
So I had a thought or a question.
Yes.
What you were feeling inside. So the way I've heard it, and people have said this, so they would say Lincoln is not a very good looking guy.
Yes.
Right? And then they would say, I'm sure, you look just like Lincoln. Well, I'm looking at you and you're a very nice looking guy.
No.
So how did that make you feel when they're saying,
Yeah,
he doesn't look very good, but you look just like him? Because
Yeah.
that's really not the way I would interpret it. Is if Lincoln looked really good, that's what he'd look like.
No, it's
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've had some struggles with some of those lines and being
Right.
compared, because I do have Lincoln-esque qualities.
Right.
Thin face, bone structure, all of that stuff. Dark hair, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. I wish I had his height, but I don't.
How tall was he?
6'4".
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 6 foot, but that extra 4 inches would have been nice. No, it was, yeah, you have moments when you're being called ugly constantly, or gawky and hideous
Now, was
looking.
that, I don't remember. Was that in the play? They
Yeah.
said things like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, well, it is what it is. And then everybody afterwards would be like, I can't believe you look exactly like him. I was like, okay. All of the reviews were like, it's Lincoln on stage. I was like, okay.
But I think they're saying what I said earlier, though. If he was a
Yes.
nice looking guy,
Yes.
that would be you.
The writer, Terry Ray, said I'm the handsome version of Lincoln.
Right.
Which I'll appreciate that. It's like Lincoln if he had a modern feature, or like a Facetune app. There we go.
There you go. So are there any glitches in the play?
Oh, there were plenty of glitches. I mean, with that many lines, there's going to be lines dropped. There's going to be cues missed. There's going to be things that happen. The only thing that we can hope is that the audience doesn't understand it or doesn't see those kind of glitches. I mean, we've had props fall away. because we've got a lot of props on stage too.
Right. Were there any glitches last week when I saw it?
Friday, yes.
Because I didn't notice
Okay,
anything.
Friday I think there was a good amount of dialogue that was missed. Yeah, and that Friday was actually the first show that I completely blanked on one paragraph of the letter, which
really?
is why my co-star Alex had to start reading it himself, because he's holding the actual letters, which is like a fail safe in case, like, for some reason, like, I lose my line.
So you're speaking, but then it could be him reading it.
Yes.
Oh,
so that's why
didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I think it was like the second or third letter where I'm just like sitting there, like, that's the one where I'm fake writing in my hand, and I'm literally like fake, like, crossing it out to try to come up with. I could not think of my line. Basically, like, a cue was missed, and I was like, I don't remember where I'm at anymore. So he read it first, then I read it, so it got me back in, which was a huge help. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard play because it's 5 people on stage the entire time. You can't leave. You can't do anything. Like, I mean, I can go into the audience, but that's really the only reprieve I have. And even then, I'm still acting.
Were you the only one that went into the audience?
So it was me and the guide. So
the guide, right?
Yeah, we have Abraham Lincoln, Joshua Speed, Mary Todd Lincoln, his wife, and Fanny Henning, which was Joshua Speed's wife. And then we have a guide that kind of is our narrator in some ways and kind of leads us through this kind of debate of whether or not Lincoln was a homosexual.
Is Alex a friend in real life?
Yeah. Which is a new thing to the actual play, which has been nice too. So I knew him briefly. So I took an acting class here in Palm Springs with Terry Ray. And that's also where I met Alex for the first time in that acting class. And then basically we found out we were in the play together. And yeah, I mean, we started going on hikes basically to try to build a friendship, because we're playing lovers or potential lovers or best friends on stage. So we had to build some kind of chemistry and some kind of relationship in that way. So that has been a fun kind of added benefit to being in Palm Springs, as well as meeting somebody who I'm also friends with now. So making friends here has been a struggle in some ways, but the play has actually really helped that, because I made friends with a bunch of people in the play. So basically my entire cast, the director and the writer, I all love personally.
Well, I won't ask it, but I was going to ask you, are you a method actor? So were you and Alex really lovers?
No.
I won't ask that.
Yeah, no, I think you just did. No, his husband, I don't think, would enjoy that.
Probably not, no. But all the cast was really good. I enjoyed them.
Yeah. Everybody was their own character, which I think was perfect. And they all worked together nicely.
So where do you go from here?
Well, I just started. So I start rehearsals for The Mousetrap next Monday. Started learning lines for that right now, which is fun. That one has a lot of lines too, which... like, I kind of wanted to break from lines for a little bit.
Right.
But at least now they're in British.
So you have to have an accent?
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, well, it'll be fine. We'll see what happens. Looking forward to it. It'll be an interesting play. I might get to play a schizophrenic police officer. Yeah, which in British. In 1950s Britain.
Oh. Are any of the other people in it, or just Alex?
Alex is in that as well.
I know Alex is, but any of the others that were in No.
Nope. So it's a different cast, and it's with a different theater company as well. So it's in Indio with Desert Theater Works.
How'd you end up going out there?
So I auditioned via self-tape for them. They had like an open audition over the summer, and then I went in and auditioned in person when they called me in, and that's when I got the part. So I got the part that Alex is playing, actually. But then they had to switch up, so they gave me a different part, and now they cast Alex.
Why'd they switch?
I don't know. I think there was a conflict, I think, with one of the actor that was playing my new role. So
okay.
Yeah. Which is a good role. So it's
And when does that come out?
So that opens mid-February. I think it's like February 16th. And it runs through March 5th.
And you're all ready for it?
No. But I will be by the time it opens. Right. I think is the only thing I can say.
All right. Yeah. I guess one last question. Not last, I have another one. But so how did it feel playing Lincoln when he's dead?
Oh, when I'm sleeping on stage, basically?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that was great. I got to keep my eyes shut and I didn't have to
not
move.
Speak, right?
It's like, it's finally not my time to talk. That's when I could regain my voice. Oh, you also saw me Friday night, which was the only time I had to drink water on stage too. Because I don't know, I think it was like 3 nights. That was the first week that we did 3 shows in a row, but we're also rehearsing right before the show. So by that show on Friday, my voice
dried out,
was
yeah.
about to go. And that room was so dry because it's built to be a movie theater.
Right.
So there's so much like fabric and everything. And it's just like, it's made to be soundproof. So, well, by the end, yeah, I needed that water.
Was it hard to project up there? Now, you guys didn't have mics on.
No,
did
no
you?
mics. We did that old school.
And were they having trouble hearing it in the back or no?
We had some people that made comments, but for the most part, not really. We all projected pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there are always moments, especially when we're like having softer moments where it's sometimes hard to project. It's hard to do a stage whisper when you're actually yelling it.
Right.
But I think for the most part, people thought we were still booming pretty much.
So, a question I ask usually,
Yes.
and I'm going to ask it to you. So, in your life so far, any lessons you've learned that you'd like to pass on? What do you go by?
What I go by, my main driving force is don't wait. Life is short. We never know when it's going to be taken away from us. So don't put off your dream, basically.
Good words. Thanks for coming in, Jason.
All right, thank you
I
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Great.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
Maybe after the mousetrap.
Perfect. I'll have a British accent at that
All
point.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.